can take control of your health and wellness. My team of doctors practice 21st century integrative medicine. Whether you suffer from chronic pain and fatigue, allergies or headaches, we can help. Take charge of your health before it's too late. Make an appointment today. Call 703-698-7117 or visit online at rosellecare.com. That's rosellecare.com.
Breast cancer is a major health risk to all women. It can silently grow uninterrupted for years. The Thermography Centers of Fairfax reminds all women to conduct monthly and annual breast exams. Consider a thermography scan from the Thermography Centers as an adjunct to your routine breast exams. Digital infrared thermal imaging is safe and non-invasive. For more information and to schedule an appointment, call 703-520-7591 or visit thermographycenters.com.
Are you dental phobic? Do you neglect your dental health because of fear and anxiety? A beautiful smile begins with exceptional dental care, and you can trust in the expertise of Soft Touch Dental Care and Dr. Michael Chung. Soft Touch Dental Care is unlike any dentist office you'll ever experience. Their warm and welcoming environment is designed to soothe fears and anxiety the moment you arrive, and they're especially pleased to pamper their honored guest patients. Dr. Michael Chung is a professional and leading expert in all areas of comprehensive dentistry, including cosmetic, sedation, neuromuscular, TMJ, and implant dentistry. Offering state-of-the-art technology, Dr. Chung can give you the smile of your dreams. Arrange for a complimentary consultation today with Dr. Michael Chung and experience the expertise that makes Dr. Michael Chung so unique. Call 703-319-6990. That's 703-319-6990. Or visit bestinsmile.com. That's bestinsmile.com.
This is Dr. Tom Roselle, author of Ageless Health. Health is a do-it-yourself program. My book, now also available in audio version, is a step-by-step program of how to take control of your health and wellness without drugs or needless surgery. You have the capacity to change your health and level of well-being. Take control of your health today and order Health is a Do-It-Yourself program.
For more information and to order, please visit agelesshealthbook.com. That's agelesshealthbook.com. Educate, engage, empower. Take control of your health with Dr. Tom Roselle and the Roselle Center for Healing. Information is power. Achieve an ultimate state of wellness with Dr. Tom Roselle's Education Lecture Series Video on Demand. Discover how to create an extraordinary life of optimal health and wellness. Visit drtomroselle.com/education. That's drtomroselle.com/education.
The information provided on Dr. Tom Roselle Live by Dr. Tom Roselle DC, interview guests, show co-hosts, or substitute hosts is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. It is for general information purposes only. Information from this broadcast should not replace the appropriate consultation and examination process by a licensed physician. Always consult your own physician prior to changing any current medical.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ageless Health with yours truly, and we got a great program for you today. Hey, I hope you were with me on WMAL 105.9 just before this. Obviously, we do the radio program on 105.9 FM, and then we slide right into the live stream. I had a great guest today, Dr. Joel Brend. He just published a book called The Glycine Miracle, The Science of Living Long and Free from Inflammation. So we know that inflammatory reactions are involved in so many different things, from injury to cancers to diabetes to heart disease, neurodegenerative problems, and so forth. And he's been really in the cutting edge and going back through the applications of things that make it very simple of how glycine works. In our practice, we've used glycine for years for cognitive dysfunction. We've used it for phase 2 detoxification with the liver. We've used it to drop inflammatory reactions. And the list really goes on. But he brought things out that those subtle pieces that we forget about, because all of a sudden somebody gets a diagnosis of cancer, right? Oh my God. And we forget that cancer has an inflammatory reaction that is due to a lot of different things, but that inflammatory piece that once it kicks in begins to cause cellular destruction, and really that's what cancer is. Or in diabetic patterns, when we hear the term insulin resistance, that wall that forms, as we've talked about, the inflammatory barrier that doesn't allow the transportation of glucose, the energy that it actually needs, into the cell. So now it accumulates in other areas of the body, tissue, causes destruction and breakdown over a period of time. Cardiovascular disease, remember I've said inflammation, acid, your body's got to put the fire out. How does it put the fire out? By throwing things that will alkalize it. That's called calcium in many cases. So you got calcific plaquing of the arterial bed. Well, glycine is one of those things that can be used therapeutically. And Dr. Brin brought out an interesting piece of data, which I hadn't thought about. I know about it, but I hadn't thought about it, is related to all this, is that, when you eat a lot of meat, and we had an off the air conversation before the program started, he said, the first thing that your body does is it tries to put the fire out, if you will, by looking for glycine. So it modulates something called methionine down. And if that doesn't happen, we could have a major issue. So the modulation process is really what's important. So we've got to think about how we're getting, where we're getting our foods. Are there things that are worse than other? I kind of threw a little zinger in at the end. I asked him, I said, hey, listen, if you're getting a hamburger that is not grass-fed, free-range, organic from one source, and you got hundreds really of different parts of different cows going into it, does it make it worse? And obviously the answer is yes. But again, we're still dealing with putting the fire out. So you have the ability to download this book. I don't know if it's on Audible yet, but on Amazon, go into the Glycine Miracle, if you will, and check it out. And I think that you'll find, as I did, extraordinarily fascinating. This man's got a breadth and depth of information and knowledge and alphabet soup behind him that I find, very fun. I wish I could have talked to him for probably the next hour and a half or so and really dug into his brain. But, the natural function of inflammation in the body is twofold. It's a double-edged sword. One is that inflammation stimulates repair and regenerative process, but when it gets out of hand, it goes to the other side and it causes degeneration and degradation and breakdown in many different pathways. So understand that there's a lot of people looking at this puzzle now that we've talked about, listeners on this program have queried about now for quite some time. But you have to understand that in going through an inflammatory cascade, if you will, that means everything begins to go crazy. He made the commentary that, every time a woman has a cycle, a menstrual cycle, she ovulates right before the cycle, and that ovulation can cause an inflammatory reaction within the tissue. I wish we had time because I was going to throw things in like, providing particularly if there's not enough progesterone balancing it, so you get estrogen dominance, even for a short period of time, is going to cause more inflammatory reactions than otherwise. But when we look through what's necessary to drop that down and allow the body to do the work that it's meant to do naturally, we begin to see that sometimes if we detox too fast, if we start dumping all kinds of things into our system because we go get these scavengers, if you will, and to pull things out of our tissue, instead of begin to do it slowly, continually, and very predictably. That's one of the reasons, by the way, just as a sidebar, that we use ionization detoxification to pull it out of the lymphatic system, because people are dumping metals and they're dumping parasites and dumping bacteria and fungus and mold and so forth. Now, the nutrients that we have to have so you don't get sick when you dump this stuff, causing more inflammatory reactions, if you will, are different types of amino acids. Glycine's one of them, but glutathione's another one, and cystine's another one, and taurine's another one. And then there's other little pieces of the puzzle that enhance that and make it even easier for your body to work the way it's supposed to. But if you don't have those things there and they're not adequate, and you're a vegetarian, but you think that eating being a vegetarian is eating just grain, and you forget about the vegetables and the proteins from different things like lentils and beans and so forth, and they're ugly stuff to begin with. You may not get what you want to get done. So we have to look at the actually three phases of breakdown of detoxification, and which means dropping the inflammatory reactions down in the body if they're working the way they're supposed to. Phase one, you can look it up. It's called cytochrome P450. And there's specific nutrients. That's the initial phase. Stuff goes into the body and your body breaks it down. You have to have different types of protection, if you will, to modulate that. But we have to make sure we got B complex, and we have to make sure that we have things like glutathione. We have to make sure that we have the right amount of certain amino acids and so forth. And we have to have certain, they're called phospholipids. They're tissue protective tissue. Then we get into phase two, and we have to have, we talked about a minute ago, glycine and taurine, glutathione, NAC, and so forth. Now, we got another phase, right? Another phase is getting rid of this stuff, taking it out of the body. That's called phase three. And a lot of literature doesn't talk about it until, well, actually recently, and we've been talking about it forever. But you got to have, certain pieces of that puzzle. Why do you use coffee enemas? It's because phase three, you want to get this stuff out of your system. But we'll spend another program on all of this, but later on. I just want you to understand that a lot of you are going to be very inflamed, if you will, coming up to the holidays, because you're going to put things in your body, and have been since Thanksgiving, maybe even Halloween, that you put in an abundance that you normally wouldn't have put in maybe once in a while. If you're like me, it's like very occasionally. It's very, very rare. I've always said to to all of you that if the average consumption of sugar per person per capita in the United States of good old America is 150 pounds or 160 pounds per person per year. Think about that. That's the size of and not even as an average sized person. Well, in our world, it's probably a small person because everybody's too fat. But we're getting all that stuff into our system, causing an inflammatory reaction. Think about what you eat. Think about what your exposures are. All of you know Dareth Painter, who works at the Roselle Center for Healing. She's our thermographer, and she's also a patient advocate, and she does a lot of health coaching in the office. And we were talking today about tea. She was out at the, at the Dulles Expo in Virginia, out in the Chantilly area, something like that. Anyway, she was out there, and she was at this place that was selling bulk teas, and she asked me if I wanted something. And we were talking about, why tea, even organic teas that you buy, are not the best in these silk bags that they put them in, because even those things have irritation to them. The tea might be good, but the bag may not be, because you're breaking things off that get into your system, they irritate the situation. So think about that. Think about all the exposures that we have to so many different things that can really bother our body, and we have to understand how this whole thing works to decrease inflammatory reactions. Now, a patient came in the other day, and here's one that we wouldn't even think about, but they don't have a gallbladder. Why? Because they had it surgically removed about 20 years ago. My comment says, I wish I would have known you then. And because there's things that you can do. One, you got to clean your diet up, right? It's usually, gallbladder problems usually have to do with allergy reactions that are constant. You're eating stuff that you shouldn't be eating. You're eating all these refined grains, and you're eating trans fats, and you're eating things that just cause that system to be super irritated. Pretty soon it gets sludge-like. And then when you have inflammation, remember, it pulls the calcium out, and pretty soon you bind that calcium up. So here's the deal, right? If you don't have a gallbladder, you don't have bile. If you don't have bile, you can't break things down along with pancreatic enzymes. And now guess what happens? You become more allergic to things. And actually that digestive process starts in the stomach. If you don't have enough hydrochloric acid and you're putting all this stuff in, you're eating way too much and you can't break it down, and your stress levels through the ceiling. I know it's the recipe for inflammation at its highest level. So and you're going to try to clear that thing out and detox and just do everything that you're supposed to do all of a sudden and get these herbs and just guess what you're going to do? You're going to get sick. You're going to get really, really sick. So what you have to do is you have to start the cascade slowly. You have to bring it in step by step. You have to first get the crap out of your diet. You got to start eating smaller meals. You got to start adding digestive enzymes. You might need a little bit of a bulk cleaner so you actually have a bowel movement, like once to twice a day instead of, once or twice a week. That's a whole different story. But trust me, many of you, when they say you're full of it, there's some meaning behind that. And I would take that very seriously, by the way, because it's, toxicity comes from the sewer. And if that gut of yours isn't working the way it's supposed to, then you got a whole different process going on. But we have to look at all the pieces of the puzzle when we're talking about inflammation. And we're coming into this next week and a half and into New Year's 2 weeks that we're doing what? We're going to eat and drink and stuff and do things that we normally shouldn't be doing. So what I would do is encourage you to do this. Look, you're not going to be 100%, most of us anyway. So you got to do something. What are you going to do? Make sure you're well hydrated. If you're not drinking enough water, your inflammation is going to go through the ceiling. Second thing, what are you going to do? Get out and go for a walk. I don't care how cold it is. Put a stocking hat on, put a scarf around, put gloves on your hands, and go for a walk every day. 10 minutes out, 10 minutes back, 15 minutes out, 15 minutes back. Start with that. And then know that when you're not eating like you should be eating, maybe you say, I don't think I'm going to have that extra piece of whatever it is. Maybe I'm going to be a little bit more careful. And maybe I better load up on some vitamin B and some C and so forth to help my liver clear out and detoxify the way it's supposed to. There's a lot of things that you can do to make a difference. That phase 1, where all the stuff comes into the cesspool, right? It needs vitamin A and C and D and E. And by the way, it's D3. But get sidebar conversation. Patient talked to me the other day and said, well, I take vitamin D. My doctor gives me a tablet once a week. Well, first of all, that's D2. It's disulfiram. It's 50,000 units, and it doesn't work. And you need to have D3. You have to get your levels up on the blood test up to about 85 to 95 minimum. And when I tell you that some doctors give their patients 100 to 200,000 units of vitamin D a day, this is no exaggeration. And these are medical physicians who deal with functional medicine protocols. The laboratory levels are not the levels that you pay attention to. You have to go into functional medicine levels to really understand that. One of these days, going into the first of the year, we're going to discuss lab work. And I'm going to put things up and show you how to make that happen. Matter of fact, I'll probably have you come into the office and we'll do that. And by the way, those of you who were at the Roselle Center for Healing last week, or this week, apparently it was Wednesday evening, Dr. Coward, Dr. Lamp, and myself, we did a whole night on neurodegeneration or neuropathy. And we really showed you some things that were quite interesting, at least for a lot of people. Say, oh, I didn't know that happened. And that was the last one for the year. Now, 2025, our next one will be with Dr. Harlan Browning, and we're going to be talking about your feet and, all kinds of things that make those really bad news. But we're definitely going to do that. It's January the 22nd at 6 p.m., and that'll be our first one of the year. You got to reserve your seat if you're going to do that. Go to rosellecare.com. That's ROSELLECARE.com, rosellecare.com, and register for the class. It's going to be foot function in skeletal health. That's how your body works. If your feet not working, the whole structure above you is not going to work. It's like try to fix a broken window on the 3rd floor in your house or in the attic, even that 2nd floor. And that broken window, you replace it, you put the frame in, and all of a sudden it pops again. And then you do it again, it pops again. Because you forgot to fix the foundation. You forgot to fix the cellar, the basement. That's the place that's shifting, that's causing that window to pop. So same thing with your body, right? If your feet aren't working the way they're supposed to, that's going to pop as well. It causes about inflammation. Your feet are going to swell. You're going to hurt. you're going to have an inflammatory reaction that's going to go all the way through. But those of you who know the professor, Dr. Harlan Browning, know that this man is amazing. He's a genius. So join us. That's one of his sweet spots. He loves to talk about the feet and how it affects the rest of the body. So join us on the 22nd of January at 6 p.m. And it's going to be a fun night. We're going to have a good time. And we're going to show you what can be done. We're going to show you how you can help your feet as well. But what it really might be, what the signaling might be. Did you know that you can have problems with your feet because of gout, because of diabetes, because of other neurodegenerative diseases? We're going to touch on those. We're going to show you all about that, but more importantly, how to fix it. So join us that night on the feet, if you will, foot function and your skeletal health, moving all the way up to the top of the body. Let's talk a little bit more about this inflammatory reaction that I was talking to Dr. Joel Brind about. Don't forget, his book is available on Amazon. You can get it, and it will be on our site. We're going to put a link on it so you can find it from us as well, as we try to post a lot of different things for you. We started to get into a conversation with Dr. Brind about methionine and why it has to be blunted and what the methionine is. There's something called the methionine cycle. And if you understand how that whole pathway works and how it begins to move into this degradation and so forth. So the methionine cycle, a lot of you have heard about something called homocysteine. It's a poison to the arterial system and the heart. And if the methionine level gets, or the homocysteine level gets way too high, you're going to start plaquing and clotting and so forth. So we have to understand that we're looking at things that help balance this out. And so we're going to talk about taurine and cysteine and what we've been talking about now, glycine. It all has to be part of the puzzle. If they are not there, then homocysteine also will upregulate. And you got a bigger problem. You have more inflammatory reactions in the arteries of your body. Interesting, right? Well, some things we keep learning about. And there's times in my life I sit there and say, oh, yeah, they finally. And where I've been accused of being, crazy boy and, practicing quackery and witchcraft for many years, but all of a sudden I'm being validated. Isn't that interesting? But here's the deal. Methionine, too much of it, drops down into something called homocysteine. And then homocysteine drops down into something that is called cystathione, and then goes to cysteine, and then it goes into a sulfation pathway. Now, the things that modify that are going to be things like N-acetylcysteine, NAC, which goes into cysteine, and then it goes in another sulfation platform. So if you understand where inflammatory degradation comes from, then you begin to understand what it is that we're talking about, why we say, listen, glycine is important, is a critical piece of the puzzle. And if we understand the basics, you don't have to be a biochemist. You just have to understand that there are certain things that work properly. There's a modulator in there, and many of you have heard the term SAM, which is a sulfur-bearing ion that goes in, and it helps modulate the expression of homocysteine. But again, that's a different pathway. And all I want you to know right now is this. I want you to understand that there are very predictable cycles that cause certain conditions within the body that when we're not aware of them and we do nothing about them, become self-perpetuating. And here's the problem too with the imbalance between cysteine and methionine is that it'll target gene expression. And so sometimes it targets it in a very bad way, depending on the balance. And we're not going to get into that as in depth as I'd like to, and as depth that I would with, if I was in front of a group of people that apply it. But just, say that you heard it one time here. And if you need to know more about that, we'll kind of, walk through it one of these days. Now, when you talk about inflammatory pathway reactions, I want you to understand that anything that the liver cannot process will cause an inflammatory reaction in the body and ultimately tissue breakdown. Period. That's simple as I can tell you. In addition to that, anything that is out of balance in the system, if you're eating too many things that are highly acidic acid is inflammation. And if prolonged too long, is going to cause a problem. Now, everybody's heard about these carnivore diets, right? Oh, I feel so great just eating. Yeah, if it's free-range, organic, grass-fed, 100% for a short period of time. But you know where the carnivore diet came from? It goes back to the old Atkins diet many, many years ago, where they saw that people who did this too long lost calcium from their bones, saw high levels of inflammatory reactions, because you're not, guess what? You're not a tiger outside eating meat. The tiger's intestinal tracts are shorter. And even when you produce adequate amounts of hydrochloric acid, digestive enzyme, they produce about 10 times more than you do. And it causes that protein, that heavy meat, to break down very rapidly so your body can handle it properly. But here's the deal. If you get older, right, and you go out and you're going to eat, 8 ounces of beef 3-4 times a day because you want to do the carnivore diet, the chances are you're going to get sick because you don't have enough hydrochloric acid to digest it properly. Will it make you feel better initially? Probably. Here's why. Because you've eliminated a lot of the fast-acting grains and sugars and other inflammatory agents from your system. So all of a sudden your body says, oh God, all these amino acids that are coming from this meat are great. I feel wonderful, until it's not. And then at that point, your body says, hey, here's the red flag. We got to do something about that. And that's when you have to make sure you're starting to get the right amino acids. You have to make in proper combinations. You have to make sure you drop that methionine level down. You have to make sure that you're getting enough vitamins, if you will, to process all of these heavy meats that you put in your system. In nature's own garden, those things are available. We just have to do it properly. And then, we have to do things in modification. One of these days, I'm going to convince, my wife to join our nutrition department for a presentation. But Sue said she's retired, so we'll do it anyway. We'll figure out how to make that happen. Anyway, I hope this helps you. All I'm saying to you is, for the next few weeks, as you're getting through the holiday season, do it more gently than you normally would. Understand that you're going to spend the first quarter of next year trying to repair the damage. And if you've already got an underlying problem, you're going to make it worse. So go easy, enjoy yourself, have a good time. But it doesn't mean getting, totally blasted at eating things and stuffing that third piece of pie down and, eating things that you should be eating and all the things that are made with lard and Crisco and so forth and so on. Go easy on it. Go gently. You don't have to deprive yourself, but just go easy and go for that walk and get a little exercise before January, where you have to make all of the commitments. I'm going to go to the gym every day. You know how long that lasts? A week, maybe 2 sessions in the gym and you're all done. Having said that, my friends, this is the time of the year where we have to be very careful. Those of you who would like to help us help others, I want you to go to our foundation website, Caring for Others. I think it's caringforothers.ltd.org. Check it out and donate, help us help others who have nothing. Caring for Others is a Virginia-based 501c3. Your donations will help so many people, and they're fully tax deductible. Thank you for doing that. Those of you who have done it on an ongoing basis, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. We do everything that we can throughout the year. Caring for Others gives scholarships to kids that are going to natural health care schools. It takes care of some of the shelters that are in the Washington metropolitan area, battered and abused women and children. We take patients in. And by the way, somebody asked me the other day, when somebody qualifies, and they have to have nothing, by the way, they have to have zero, nada to qualify for Caring for Others. Here's what Caring for Others pays. They could have $250 to $300 per visit charge. the patient pays nothing. Caring for others only pays $10 for that whole visit. And no one that's on the board of caring for others gets 5 cents. Everything is contributed. Their time, their effort, their attention. So help us help others, caring for others. Do it before the end of the year so you can write it off this year. Really appreciate it. And I hope that all of us have the greatest holiday season ever and really plan for a brand new year. Start planning what you're going to do, but don't make these resolutions. If you resolve something to do something better, that means you put a game plan in, you put a time frame in it, and then you do what? And then you get somebody to hold you responsible for that commitment. That's what I wish for you. You have a great Sunday. Remember, I love you all. See you next week. Bye.